Hey guys, welcome back to Dual 16. I am your host Javon, and today we're off a brand new video. Today we're testing out 4 gigabytes of RAM. That's not great. So yeah, we're running with 4 gigabytes of RAM in modern gaming. That cost me $4. I bought 2 sticks of RAM, a 4 gig and an 8 gig stick for $7. 8 gig stick didn't work, so the guy refunded me on eBay at $3. So technically, I bought this for $4, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. As you can see, it is running with 4 gigabytes of RAM here. The speed is 2667 megahertz, as that is the highest the motherboard supports. You can also see it over here in CPU Z, and we are going to have some fun with it. The test bench is the i3 10105, boost clock up to 4.2 gigahertz. It probably stays there the whole time, and we are using an RX Vega 56 8GB VRAM graphics card. Now we are running everything off of an SSD today, and we have a different SSD for the boot drive, so that definitely will help the 4 gigabytes of RAM. Other than that, the Vega has been overclocked to 1600 megahertz and the memory clock to 875. We also have the power limit to the 829, and this is going to be a disaster all the way around. But once again, what can 4 gigabytes of RAM do in modern gaming? It only cost me $4. What could possibly go wrong, right? Oh. Oh. Well, we tried Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. That one didn't work out for us. I did do 1080p low. I went into the very low preset on here. Even left on FSR quality just to see. Didn't work out. Let's try something else, I guess. Well, how about The Last of Us Part 1? That wouldn't fail me. Oh. 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 You can't beat the classics, guys. Hey, it's GTA 5. 1440p, very high. We're MSAA times 2 once again. Apparently, it still manages to pull off the game quite well. This is an old game from 2015, though, that came to PC at least. The 4 gigabytes of RAM handles it surprisingly well. We do get a lot of stutters, and my 1% and those old 0.1% lows are going to be terrible. As you can see, 18 FPS, not great. It only gets worse when we actually start to drive now, as there's a lot of traffic going on. Because of this, I also see my CPU is working 10 times as hard. It seems like, just to try to keep up. We're only getting in the 50s and 60s. Like, the RAM is such a limiting factor. It is crazy. Look at this. It looks ridiculous, but that's what happens when you try. And there's stutter. Stutter is now a thing. So that's what happens when you have 4 gigabytes of RAM. But still, it is playable. I would probably try to cap this to 30 FPS though, and probably might be a more of a decent experience than you'd think. Whoa, that 1% low is at 1 FPS. That is rough. But it isn't the worst thing in the world, even when driving. Next up, we have Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p on the low preset. Yes, I said low, not the lowest preset. It is somewhat still capable, but once again, we see an issue where, due to the lack of RAM, the CPU is running at overtime, using over 90%. Like, I've tested this before, it doesn't run over 90% when I test this area. Like, obviously, the frame times are not great. This is the most demanding area of the game, though, so, I mean, take that how you will, I guess. But the frame times are not great. The FPS is not great. We're getting 1% lows of 16 FPS. It's not a fun time all around, and there is stutter. In fact, for one moment, I actually thought it was going to crash on me. So, yay.
What were you doing with your friends in the wilderness,
Resident Evil 4 Remake, also a big no, unfortunately. Which is quite sad to me. We just launched it and then it just said crash. No, we're not working, dummy. Move on. Unlike most, the Callisto Protocol managed to make it to the menu screen. Um, I don't, I don't know how I feel about that though, considering it didn't. It ooh. uh, It's still running, as you can see. Those percentages are still moving, but I mean, yeesh. Yeah, that one in that's not running, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's just move on again. You're probably wondering to yourself, why am I looking at a blank screen right now? Well, this isn't a blank screen at all. This is just Marvel Spider-Man Remastered failing to run. Joke's on you, I guess. Moving on. This one was surprising and not surprising at the same time. A Plague Tale manages to run at 1080p low with the resolution optimizer at quality settings, and it seems to run the 4 GB of RAM quite well. I kind of knew this because naturally a Plague Tale Requiem doesn't actually even though it looks this good, it actually doesn't use that much RAM or VRAM for that matter. It's actually not that intensive all around. The CPU is quite heavy, and I feel like because of the lack of RAM, the CPU is being hammered a lot harder here again as well, because we're not even getting the frame rates that we normally do in this area. But yeah, other than that, it does seem to be playable. The 1% lows that are over 30 FPS, so this is a slow paced game. This is playable here. The Witcher 3 Next Gen update actually surprised me on this one. At 1080p low, the game is running at over 60 FPS. I did try to run it the first time and it actually crashed on me, which wasn't a good sign, but I said, you know what, I'll try it again, and it is running this time around. So you may have crashed, there will be crashes during this. Keep that in mind, there will be hiccups, but the game is running, and there are stutters in the game. As you can see, my 1% lows at 80%, but for the most part it seems like it's keeping over 60 FPS on average. This won't be the worst experience. I would recommend once again capping all these games to 30 FPS if you had 4 GB. I don't know why you would, but that was a bad stutter just now, and you're still gonna get the stutters because 4 GB is just not enough. The 4 gigs is trying, man, it's trying.
Let's dance.
I won't lie to you on this one. Horizon Forbidden West kinda tricked me, because at 1080p very low with FSR quality set on, I did launch the game and it did manage to make it to the main menu, and it just never moved from there. It was quite unfortunate. Like, it got there, it was like, oh crap, this is like the latest one that's actually managing to run, and then it's like, nah bro, not responding. You see what I mean? Pain all around. Battlefield 5 is also heavily suffering from the 4 GB of RAM. As you can see, it has my CPU maxed out from the very jump at 1080p low settings once again. It is a struggle all around. My 1% lows are 3 FPS, so that is not a great experience. But hey, the game is running. That is a plus in it of itself. It's saying we're using 3.3 GB of RAM, but we're basically using the whole thing here. And once again, because of that, there is massive stutter in this game. I can tell you right off, this one is not playable regardless of what you do. This one will not run properly. There's just way too much stuttering. So this one is a skip, if I'm being honest with you. You'll see in a second. It stutters like crazy. I hate this. Well, when in doubt, Resident Evil 4 doesn't run, Resident Evil 3 is to the rescue. At 1080p on the low preset once again with the 4GB of RAM, Resident Evil 3 is much more playable than Resident Evil 4. Obviously, Resident Evil 4 has a much bigger scope than Resident Evil 3, so this one and 2 are very much more playable than 4 would be, but 4 doesn't even launch. So, regardless, this one is a crazy smooth experience, all things considered. You know, you will get the occasional stutter here and there, but for the most part, it seems to be able to handle over 100 FPS. I was getting in the 90s and 80s once we get out to the main street, but other than that, performance is good.
Carlos, I've reached the main avenue. Which way do I go?
See a big transmission tower? That's the substation. You'll have to circle around through an alley to your right to get there.
You mean the alley that's on fire?
Maybe. Surely a tall drink of water like yourself can put out a few flames.
Fuck you.
And finally, Final Fantasy VII Remake, once again, here running this one at 1080p low, actually performed pretty good as well as Resident Evil 3. Loving it. This will be the final video of the benchmarks, and well, this one is actually also playable, surprisingly, you know? I did say Final Fantasy VII can run on pretty much anything these days, but really to see the type of performance you can get out of this damn thing, even with 3GB, 4GB of RAM. Outstanding, realistically. But once again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and stick around for more epic content. If you guys like seeing types of videos like this on the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. And I will see you guys on the next one. But this runs great. 4GB of RAM. Who knew?
Nothing to it.
Drop the weapon!
You got this.
Yeah, what he said. You're coming with us.
Can't get surrounded.
It's over.